He says live on both sides. Go.
Okay. This is a call to order of a regular public meeting of the Bridgeport Board of Education. Today is Monday, April 27th, and the time is now 6:42 p.m. Madam Secretary, would you call the roll?
Yes. Miss Allen,
Present. Present.
Mr. Benahan,
Present.
Mr. Lombard,
Here.
Martinez, Mr. Sokolovic,
Present.
Mr. Taylor, Mr. Weldon,
Present.
Mr. Illingsworth,
Present.
all right, and Bobby Brown, present.
Okay. Although we have lack of a flag, let's put our hands over our hearts and pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
States of America,
and
and
to the republic which it stands,
which is
one nation,
one nation,
God,
under God,
visible,
indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
So, our first item on the agenda is public comment. We're doing it a little differently this go round. Our IT department is assisting us in this regard. We have 9 people who have signed up, and they will be speaking either over the telephone or through webcam. I don't know which they're going to use. As I call the individual names, our IT department will queue them up and give them the ability to speak. As is normal, we confine this to 2 minutes per speaker. However, because of the technological limitations we have, it's been set up to where if a speaker exceeds 2 minutes, they're going to automatically be cut off. So please, on your own ends, try to be mindful of how much time you're using, because we really don't want to cut you off. But that is what will happen if you exceed the 2 minute time slot. The first person on the list is Kinga Karlowska. Kinga Karlowska. Okay. Next on the list is Marge Hiller. Marge Hiller. Third on the list is George Markley. George Markley. Fourth on the list is someone who has not given themselves a proper name. It just says RJ, and they live in 06610. RJ from 06610. Maria Ramos.
Wait, hold on. Mark Lee's trying to get on.
Oh, okay, let's back up. Are you there, Mr. Markley?
Just a moment, Mr. Weldon. It's coming through.
Okay.
The connection is being worked on.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Wondon,
Yeah,
I have a
Go ahead.
question. Yes, thank you. I have a question on the fifth state. I need to make a motion. Did I make a motion after the public comment, or do you want me to do it now?
sorry, I can barely hear you.
I say I have a motion to make. That I do it now, or that I do it after the public comments?
I think you would do it after the public comment.
Okay, sir. No
Okay.
problem. No problem. Thank you.
Okay, sir, go ahead and talk.
So who is this now? Is this George Markley? If this is Mr. Markley, we can't understand what you're saying. Speakers on your computer, as you're talking into your telephone, please turn off your speakers on your computer. It's almost like when you call into a radio talk show and they tell you to turn the radio off. Same idea. You want to try it again?
I think I. All right, everybody.
Okay, who is this?
All right, are you able to hear us properly now,
I hear you.
Mr. Markley? Mr. Markley, if you could speak, I'd greatly appreciate it. Mr. Markley, if you could speak, I'd greatly appreciate it.
Mr. Walden,
Mm,
you don't need
Sir
much better.
Mr. Benham, yes.
It's not much better just to keep forward. She'll email you her, her comments, and then you share so we can keep forward.
That's another option. I mean, if this doesn't work out, people can always email their comments in.
Yeah, I would say at this point, unfortunately, what's happening is people are not currently unmuting their phones, and because of that, they don't appear to be talking. Unfortunately, I don't know what to do about that. I apologize.
Is there an instruction we can give them?
Yeah. So for the public speaker that's on there, they just have to do *6 to unmute themselves, and then they can begin speaking. So if you want to call them by name, or if they're in the app, they can simply unmute themselves and begin on their side. But unfortunately, because the user is the one that has to unmute themselves, that's, by their choice.
Okay, so we're going to start from the top. Kinga Karlowska. Is Kinga queued in, Mr. Postolowski?
From what I see here, she is there, but she is not picking up from what I can see.
Okay. Kinga, if you're out there, please pick up and unmute your phone. Okay. I'm going to move on to the next name. Marge Hiller. Marge Hiller. Is Marge Hiller in the queue? Mr. Postolowski?
Let me check and see the phone numbers. Yes. All right. Yes, Marge Hiller is in the queue right now.
Okay, Marge Hiller, if you can hear me, please unmute your phone. Is there anything else that she has to do, Jeff?
No, she just has to unmute her phone.
If you unmute your phone and start speaking.
She's unmuted.
Okay, yep, she's unmuted and she is now talking.
Okay, success.
Can you hear me?
And also, if you have this streaming in the background, I need you to mute your computer, because otherwise it's just going to be a back and forth echo.
I don't know how to mute my YouTube on my
I hear
computer.
you perfectly now.
All right, so you can begin, ma'am.
Go ahead, Ms. Hiller.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Last week, the Department of Education approved $13 billion in emergency corona relief. I understand that $111 million is coming to Connecticut, and that $9.3 million is coming to Bridgeport. That is great news for all the students and teachers in the Bridgeport schools, and it is absolutely the right time for you to restore the funding for the school volunteer office. Teachers, students, and administrators all recognize the work of the hundreds of school volunteers is essential. You just heard from many people the work that they do and the difference it makes to the teachers and the students. So please, with this money, restore the school volunteer office. It is the right thing to do. And remember that the school volunteer office is less than 0.1% of your total budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hiller. Next is George Markley. Alternately, if you're not able to mute your computer, you can always walk into another room so we don't pick up the background. Mr. Markley, if you're there, please unmute your phone, and please don't have the speakers on in your computer. Are you there, Mr. Markley?
Mr. Markley is in the waiting room, but he is not unmuting himself.
Okay. We'll give a minute for him to do that. Mr. Markley, if you would unmute your phone, and you hit *6 to do that.
He has not unmuted himself yet. If you want to move, there are 4 other people in queue.
Okay. RJ in 06610. Is that one of the people in the queue?
One moment.
RJ Demers.
There's even feedback when no one's on the phone. There's something else going on.
Yeah. Maria Ramos. If you're there, please hit *6 to unmute yourself. Is Maria Ramos there, Mr. Postolowski?
I'm looking to see, based on the number, just one moment, please.
This number would start with 572.
No, that one is not there.
Okay. Wanda Simmons with a phone number starting with 864.
Yes, that number is in queue and waiting.
Okay. Wanda Simmons, if you can hear me, press *6 to unmute yourself, and please turn off the speakers on your computer or walk into another room so we don't get the background.
Hear me?
I can hear you. Is this Ms. Simmons?
You hear me?
Sorry?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. And again, please turn off your speakers or walk into another room away from your computer. So go ahead, Ms. Simmons.
I'm not on a computer. I'm on my phone. Good evening. Good evening.
Okay, you can proceed with your comment.
I hear a lot of background noise. I'm not sure if you can hear me, but it's not coming from my end.
Okay, I do hear you. Ms. Simmons? Did we lose Ms. Simmons? Mr. Postolowski?
No, she's here. She's starting her right now.
Okay.
Yes, they can hear you.
Okay, hi. Good evening, everyone. I just we give a thank you to the superintendent, Mike County. I've had a few parents that have contacted me with some issues, and I got good news that they were all serviced except one family as far as being able to get laptops and technology for their families. So I thank you for that collaboration. And I also wanted to say thank you to Nicola Hall and John Garrity for collaborating with the COVID-19 Food Access Task Force. We were able to have a collaboration so that our families that are needing food have access to food. So I just wanted to call in and say thank you. I mean, I know that everyone is doing their best and there's still issues out in the district. And I know that everyone is working hard to, try to get everyone on board with their distance learning and everything else that we're coming up against. So I just wanted to say thank you for that collaboration. And my families are very happy. So thank you very much.
Okay.
John, you're on mute.
Better? Okay, all right. Shayla Robinson with a phone number beginning with 475449. Is you there, Mr. Postelowski?
Yes, that number just demuted and is now ready to speak.
Okay.
Yep.
You there, Ms. Robinson?
I am. There's a high pitched.
Are you in front of a computer, Shayla? You know what the issue is, Mr. Postelowski?
It sounds like there might be a background noise. We just muted all the other people on the phone, so that should hopefully take care of it. Oh, Mr. Markley unmuted. There we go.
Okay, so Ms. Robinson, are you there? Ms. Robinson, if you press *6, that will unmute you. I think you may have been muted by the host.
A little bit.
A call in for you, so we'll call you in just a minute to make this better because there appears to be too much feedback. Okay, so just bear with us one moment, please.
When we talking, we can hear our voice like 2 or 3 times at the same time.
I'm starting to think it's coming from us. Like the patch from us to them is where the
It could
feedback
be,
is happening.
and I think
Even
maybe,
when the people aren't, yeah.
I think if maybe Jeff
It is.
mutes
'Cause I work
everybody,
in
except the public
something.
speaker, it will work.
I agree.
Yeah, because it's happening even when no one's when they're all muted. Just whatever Jeff is on, it does that. So.
Correct. That's what I was thinking. The patch between the two is what's causing the feedback.
Yeah, it's because what's happening is when we connect the other party, it's looping back through because somebody may have a device on that's actually feeding it back through the phone. So that's why we're going to switch just to phones, because I think that's the issue. There's nothing much we could do about that other than switch to phone. So just one moment. I apologize.
No worries.
Are we ready to move forward, Jeff?
Mr. Chair, Mr. Walden.
Yeah, Albert.
Shayla Robinson, she texted me. She said, I'm still on, just can't hear anything. That's what she told me just now.
Okay. Mr.
Hello?
Postolowski,
Yes, that should now merge the calls together and you have our next person on the phone there.
who is this? Who's the next person?
This is Shayla Robinson.
Shayla Robinson?
Yeah.
Okay, we can hear you.
Okay. So I just wanted to address tonight. Is there any feedback? Because I can't hear you
Nope.
guys.
We hear you.
So I just wanted to address tonight the school from home situation. When we rolled out the distance learning, I think we rolled it out prematurely. Yes? Yes. Okay. So
You faded out on us, Ms. Robinson.
It appears she dropped off of the call.
Okay. So she lost her signal?
It's entirely possible. We can switch to the next person if you'd like.
Okay, if she comes back, let me know.
Okay, one moment.
So we had George Markley.
All right, we'll do George Markley now. One moment.
No Markley?
Mr. Warden,
Yes.
Shayla just told me that the call just dropped and they hang up,
Yeah, tell her, yeah, if she calls back in, Jeff knows when her number comes back to bring her back in.
All right.
Is Mr. Markley here? Jeff? Mr. Postolowski?
Okay, here it comes. Oh, no. Unmuted.
Okay,
Good
so
afternoon.
we are
Hello?
now demuted. Are you able to hear?
Who is this?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman.
Is this Mr. Markley?
Yes, it is.
Okay, we can hear you. So this is George
Oh,
Markley.
wonderful. Yes,
Go ahead, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen of the board. My name is George Markley. I am the Vice President of the School Volunteer Association. I have been a mentor to students in Bridgeport for the past 30 years. My first mentee, Adam Gonzalez, is now 40 years old with 2 children of his own. I've also been reading to classes in various Bridgeport schools for over 25 years. The School Volunteer Association has been in existence for 53 years. The individuals who serve as the staff of the SVA are employees of the Board of Education. They work for the volunteer office. but their salaries and benefits were eliminated 2 years ago. The SVA, which is a separate 501c3 organization, has paid for their salary and benefits for the past 2 years. In order to do that, the SVA has exhausted all of its reserves that it accumulated over the last many years. But the SVA can no longer continue operating through the coming year if the $175,000 in salary and benefits is not provided by the Board of Ed and restored to the budget. As you know, SVA recruits and places hundreds and hundreds of volunteers in the schools, mentors, math tutors, classroom readers, one-on-one reading buddies, and it goes on and on. The services that they perform are invaluable. I want to emphasize 2 points. First, despite the name, the work of the School Volunteer Association is not done by volunteers. While our board is all volunteer, we need professionals to run the day-to-day operations of the association. These are the 2 full-time positions that the Board of Ed has in the past paid for. The work simply can't be done on an occasional basis by volunteers. Our situation is no different from that of the Board of Education. You too are volunteers, and I thank you for that service. But you could not run the school system without the professionals whom you have. And that's the same situation with the SBA. Second, if the SBA goes out of business, the services which it provides will disappear as well. Within a short period of time, there will be no more volunteers in the schools because there will be no organized structure to vet the volunteers, to place them, to oversee them, to provide them with guidance, and so forth. Those are all the services that the School Volunteer Association staff perform. And the schools themselves simply can't do it. They don't have the time, especially in this day and age when budgets have been cut and they're frantic just trying to provide an education to students with their reduced staff. Finally, to find out if volunteers make a difference in the lives and the education of students whom we serve in Bridgeport, ask Adam Gonzalez or any of the thousands of kids who've benefited and learned from the volunteers who came into their schools. This may be the Board of Ed's last chance to save School Volunteer Association and the $1 million in services which it provides every year. I hope that the board will not waste this opportunity, but instead will put the SVA staff members back in its budget for this coming year so that we can survive and continue to do the work that we've done for the past 53 years. And I thank you for your time and for your attention and for your service.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Markley.
Thank you.
Just before Mr. Markley, we had Shayla Robinson. Her call was dropped. Do you know if Ms. Robinson has returned, Mr. Postolowski? 475-449.
We are checking right now. We have somebody else in the queue. Who's next? We have Veronica Monica, who's next. If you are ready for that.
Monica, are you there? Are you there, Ms. Mojica?
Hello. Okay, I have Veronica on the line.
Okay, Ms. Mojica? Is this Veronica Mojica?
Yes.
Okay, you have the floor.
All right, my name is Veronica Mojica. I'm a lifelong resident of Bridgeport. I have 5 kids. My oldest is a graduate from Kobe. My daughter, she's a junior at Notre Dame, and unfortunately, that's the route I'd have to go for my next 3 kids because our Bridgeport public schools, high schools, are terrible. In a time like this that we're going through, you know, we've been locked down, we've been deprived of so many things. I have 3 kids that are supposed to be starting Little League, and I'm sure that's going to be canceled, just like school should be canceled for the remaining.
Did we lose Ms. Mojica? Mr. Postolowski? Is Ms. Mojica still there? Mr. Postolowski?
Yeah, on the bottom left, it looks like there's a microphone muted on anonymous. Is that possibly the call? If you get muted?
Jeff, her call dropped, so we're reconnecting her right now.
Okay. You're reconnecting her, or are we moving to the next?
Okay.
Ms. Mojica? Mr. Postolowski? Are you muted again?
You may now continue with your call. Here you go.
All right.
Who do
So
we
my
have here now?
question
Is this Ms. Mojica again?
yes, it is.
Okay, please continue.
Okay. So my question is, as a community, am I continuing or not?
Yeah, continue.
Okay. So my
yes, you are.
my question is this: as a community, I'm not affected by having a senior at home, not being able to walk down the aisle and receiving that certificate that took their life to get. I think it's a very important event. I think that we have maybe 7 to 9 high schools in the city of Bridgeport. I'm sure that with some common sense and some social distancing and limiting it, even if, for example, Kobe will have probably 70 graduates. You have to do a graduation for these kids. 70 graduates, you give each kid 3 tickets for their family, which is, but we have to do social distance. We have to keep the crowds small. Something you cannot let these 9 high school, if there's 9 schools, I'm thinking there's 9 high schools, but these kids deserve to have a graduation. Bridgeport needs to get it together. Bridgeport needs to do it for our children because they are the future of our city and they deserve to be recognized. Whether you have to do it at the Bluefish, you passed, what was it, a $4.5 million a bill for the theater. We don't need a theater right now. Maybe we can use that place, Bluefish, and do proper social distancing, but I think that graduates need to have a ceremony for them, and it can be properly done as a community, as a whole. We need to do this for our children.
Okay.
A bill for the theater. We don't need a theater right now. Maybe we can use that place, Bluefish, and do proper social distancing, but I think that graduates need.
Are you there? We don't hear you anymore.
I think it re-looped her. It played the same message again.
Okay. Is Ms. Mojica gone, Mr. Postolowski?
Oh, wait, no, she's up here.
Are we moving to the next name, Mr. Postolowski?
Hello, you have Siobhan Davis on the line now for public speaking.
Okay, Ms. Davis.
Okay, go on, Ms. Davis.
You have the floor. Go
Thank
ahead.
you. Thank you. Good evening to everyone. I just have a few concerns about attendance. On Friday, April 24th, I received a call from Harding indicating that my son was absent, and I'm not sure why, because he didn't have any classes, virtual classes, for Friday. Today,
Did we lose Ms. Davis?
No, I didn't. I believe that Siobhan Davis is no longer on the line.
Okay.
I will get Shayla Robinson back on the line.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Is this Ms. Robinson?
Hello? Hello,
Yes.
I have Shayla. I have Miss Shayla Robinson back on the line.
Okay, Ms. Robinson, you there?
Thank you.
sorry about
Okay.
earlier. I don't know what happened, but I just wanted to address a couple of different things. There are a couple concerns. One is the distance learning. A lot of us parents feel that when it was rolled out prematurely based on, which we all understand, the COVID-19. There was no training set in place for teachers or students, and the expectation that went along with it as far as these children logging into class as if they're in the school. Us parents have to sit with them when they're logging in. So they're getting marked incorrectly for attendance. I can show you emails that I have to send back and forth to teachers to say, you got his assignment. Why is he marked absent? Why is he marked absent on a flex Friday if it's a flex Friday? I think that moving forward, I know that prom was canceled. There's a lot of devastation wrapped around that. I pray that you all figure it out when it comes to graduation. I heard one other mom talk about it. And it is very important. These kids work very hard for that. While I understand we do need to be very cautious, we need to figure out a better way to get these children to walk. They worked very hard for that. Another concern was if the governor decides to open back Connecticut and schools, what will you do if parents decide not to send their child to school for the remainder of the year? At this point, I hope that Superintendent Testani makes the decision to not open schools back through the rest of the year. But should that happen, what do you all plan to do, or have you even talked about what you will do if parents decide it is not safe for their child to go back to school? So those are the few concerns that I do have. I know that you all have worked very hard, which is greatly appreciated, getting students and, special education students Chromebooks and laptops, so that is greatly appreciated. But those are the few concerns that parents are looking for and looking for answers to. So those were my topics. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Robinson. All good points. I think we've gone through everyone. I'll just go through the names that nobody answered to previously, just to be sure. We have Kinga Karlowska with a phone number of 203-450. Does anyone like that in the queue, Mr. Postolowski? Mr. Postolowski?
I believe we're all set, Mr. Weldon. I think we can
Is
continue.
is there anybody else in the queue? I just want to be
No,
sure.
no,
Nobody in the queue?
no. They're gonna work on the Q&A part.
Okay, but there's no one in the queue right now.
No.
All right. We're going to continue on with the remainder of the meeting. Next on the agenda is item number 5, approval of board
Mr. Walden,
minutes.
I have a motion. Mr. Walden, I have a motion to make, please.
Okay,
I would like to make a motion to add discussion and possible action of the Title I Parent Allocation Fund to the agenda.
does anyone want to second that?
I second it.
I'll second, okay.
Okay, Ms. Brown seconded it.
I'll
I'm going to ask Ms. Brown to do a roll call vote so we get this right. Everybody can unmute themselves now.
1 second.
Okay. So to be clear, Mr. Benham, what is this
You
motion
ready?
to add?
I would like to make a motion to add discussion of possible action of Title I Parent Allocation Fund to the agenda.
Parent, what funds?
Allocation.
Allocation funds. Okay.
Yes. Thank you, Jeff.
Okay. A motion made by Mr. Benahan, seconded by Ms. Brown. Ms. Brown, would you call the roll?
Yes. Miss Allen?
Unmute her, please. Somebody needs to unmute Miss Allen, please.
Mr. Weldon, if you need any assistance with that, just let us know. We'll be
Miss
standing
Allen,
by
you
for
can be unmuted, please, Jeff.
Miss Allen. Okay, one moment.
Make sure all the board members are unmuted.
The 913-4461, please unmute it.
The chair, can we go through the rest of the roll while that's happening, please?
Ms. Brown?
Sure. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Go
Oh,
ahead.
she did. Never mind.
Everybody, my name is Dr. William Clark. I am the Vice President of.
Sorry. Mr. Lombard?
Yes.
I'm sorry. Mr.
So we've
Sokolovic?
currently
Yes.
unmuted everybody that we're able to, but Miss Allen has to hit *6 on her phone to unmute, unfortunately.
Okay.
So Ms.
All right,
Allen,
so
if you
I'll
can
start
hear us-
again.
Ms. Allen, if you can hear us, press *6 on your keypad.
All right. Mr. Benahan?
Yes.
Miss Allen, she's there?
Yes.
Miss Allen?
Yes, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Yes.
You get a motion?
Okay, I said yes.
Okay. Mr. Sokolovic?
I said yes. You got me ready.
Okay. Mr. Ellingsworth?
Yes.
Mr. Weldon?
Yes?
Bobby Brown, yes. I believe I caught everyone.
I believe you did too. Motion carries unanimously. So we'll add that item under new business.
Thank you, sir.
Continuing, approval of board minutes. The first one being March 9th, 2020, regular meeting. Anyone viewing in the public packet, begins on page 3. Is there a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes of March 3rd?
So
So
moved.
moved.
Moved
I'll
by
second.
Mr. Illingworth. Is there a second?
I'll
I
second.
second.
Second by Mr. Benahan. Is there any discussion? I'll just go down the list of board members. Ms. Allen, do you have any comments on the board minutes?
No.
Mr. Benahan?
No, sir.
Mr. Lombard?
No, I was not present.
Okay. Mr. Skalovic?
Yes, just one, page 2, 7th paragraph, 2nd line. Word bold needs to be changed to bullied.
Is that it?
Yeah, that's it for that date.
Okay. Mr. Illingworth, any comment?
No.
Ms. Brown, any comment?
No.
Okay, I think I got everyone. So, all in favor?
Uh,
Any
Aye.
opposed? Any abstention?
Abstain. Lombard.
Mr. Lombard abstains. Okay, next up is the minutes of the March 23rd, 2020 special meeting. For those viewing in the public packet, that's on the homepage. This commences on page 15. Is there a motion to approve the March 23rd, 2020 special meeting minutes?
So
So
moved.
moved.
Motion to approve.
Okay. Moved by Mr. Illingworth, I think I heard first.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Mr. Sokolovic. Is there any discussion? I'll go down the list again. Mr. Illingworth, do you have any comments or changes?
No.
Ms. Brown, comments or changes?
No.
Ms. Allen, do you have any comments or changes to those minutes?
No.
Mr. Benahan?
No, sir.
Mr. Lombard?
No.
Mr. Skalovic?
No.
Okay. All in favor of approving the March 23rd special meeting minutes?
Aye.
Signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Approval of the April 1st, 2020 special meeting minutes. Is there a motion to approve? These minutes begin on page 21 of the public packet. Is there a motion to approve?
That sounds like Alan.
Motion to approve.
It sounded like Ms. Allen made a motion. Is that true?
So then I'll second it.
Okay, seconded by Ms. Brown. Is there any discussion? I'll go down the list. Mr. Illingworth?
No.
Ms. Brown?
No.
Ms. Allen?
No.
Mr. Benahan?
No.
Mr. Lombard?
No.
Mr. Skalovic?
No.
Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Motion carries unanimously. And we have finally minutes of April 14th, 2020 special meeting minutes. This commences in the public packet on page 25. Is there a motion to approve the April 14th, 2020 special meeting minutes?
So moved. Sybil Allen.
Moved by Ms. Allen. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Brown. Any discussion? Mr. Illingworth?
No.
Ms. Brown?
No.
Ms. Allen?
No.
Mr. Benahan?
Mr. John Wald, I'm a little confused because I don't have the package with me in my hand. That meeting, that's the day they make you the chair that day? That was the special meeting? I'm a little confused.
No, this is the last meeting we had about 2 weeks ago.
Okay, no comments, no.
Okay. Mr. Lombard?
No.
Mr. Skalovic?
No. No.
Okay. All in favor, signify by
Aye.
saying aye.
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 I
Any opposed? Any opposed? Any abstentions?
I abstain.
Mr. Illingworth abstains. Next on the agenda is Chairman's report. I'll be brief. I know some people called in talking about concerns about graduation. That is being thought about. I participate in what have become weekly teleconferences with CABE, Connecticut Association of Boards of Ed. And that is one of the topics that is talked about every Friday among all the districts. It's something they're concerned about, and I know Mr. Testani has expressed a concern about it. He believes that, you know, for a good number of the folks who are going to graduate, this is the only time they're going to have such a ceremony. A lot of people will not go to college. They will not have any other experience like this again. And it's important to a lot of us that we give it to them. So it is being actively thought about. Tentative discussions have been had, but nothing firm, just kind of more brainstorming of what might be able to occur. I think Mr. Testani would be in a better position to maybe talk about that further, maybe at our next meeting. I don't, unless he wants to talk about it this evening, but it is being thought about, it is being talked about, and we want to try to figure something out. Other than that, I just want to thank the staff for the outstanding work they're doing, all the food service workers out there in the front line. Thank you, Mr. Benahan, for passing out masks last week. Thank you to all the teachers that are operating in a really different environment at home. It's not easy. It can be clunky. It can be awkward, but they are stepping up to the challenge, and we're very proud of them. Last, I actually received a communication from a teacher that I'm personally acquainted with, who said that a lot of teachers are very glad that the BOE decided to implement Teams as opposed to some other platforms for distance learning. And I just wanted to kind of clarify and make sure that we recognize the appropriate people. It wasn't us at the board level who chose Teams. It was the superintendent and his cabinet and his IT staff who came together and evaluated and picked the right platform. And I just want to let them know that your frontline teachers are greatly appreciative of what you've chosen for them to work with. They're very pleased with it, and you should be pleased with your own work. Having said all of that, I'm going to move on to committee reports. First one being facilities. Mr. Illingworth, do you have anything to report?
No, we will be in the process of getting something scheduled in the very near future.
Okay. Next, we have finance.
Mr. Chair, I've got a referral for facilities.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Seeing as it's all our buildings are currently closed, I want to ensure, because sometimes over the summers and when it breaks and proper maintenance isn't being done, mold will form when there's no circulation going through the building. I just want to make sure that proper whatever is going on to make sure our buildings are being ready and we'll be able to open when they need to open. I don't know how to actually form that into an agenda item.
That's one of the things that's going to be on the agenda regardless, Mrs. Sokolovic. So,
okay, thank you.
Okay. Finance committee, is there anything to report?
Finance committee met on April 15th. We had a video conference. We got an update on the budget and a discussion on the potential impact of COVID on the budget. Everything's really in flux right now, so there are no hard numbers as of yet, and I'm sure Mr. Testani will be addressing it more a little further during the meeting. And our next meeting will be on May 13th, approximately, or that could be subject to change, at 6:30, right here. Electronic.
Right here on the web.
Yes, sir.
All right. Any referrals for finance? Governance, Mr. Illingworth?
As soon as the superintendent has something to report on the Series 1000, I know a lot of other things have taken precedent, which is rightfully so. So as soon as I get the okay that Series 1000 has recommendations from the administration, I will schedule a meeting for that.
What is Series 1000?
That's community relations.
Okay. All right. Any referrals to governance? Okay. Teaching and Learning Committee?
Teaching and Learning met on Thursday, April 16th. We discussed distance learning for all cohorts, grading, device availability, special ed, graduation, and grade advancement. Again, which I think we're going to be discussing, Ms. Testani is going to be discussing in depth, so I won't take up any time discussing that. Teaching and Learning should be meeting May 19th, 6 or 6:30 p.m. via the same platform we're on now.
Okay. Personnel Committee. Personnel Committee has not met. There's a new HR director. Been kind of giving her the ability to get things up and running herself before we try to saddle her with a Personnel Committee meeting. But the next scheduled meeting is for Wednesday, May 27th, 6:30 p.m. I'll be in contact with her to see if there's anything of substance that needs to be brought to the committee level from her perspective. And I'd ask if anyone else has any referrals to the Personnel Committee. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, before you go to students and families, can we just, anyone in the public who would like to participate in the Q&A coming up, if they want to go onto the main web page, right on the front, it says participate in Q&A on Teams Live. Click here. They should begin to get in there now so they can be involved in the Q&A. So when the time comes, we'll be ready to go.
Okay.
Main web page, participate in Q&A, click here. That's all they have to do.
Okay.
Thanks.
Students and Families Committee, Mr. Benahan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We spoke last Thursday, me and then Joe and Bobby and Mr. Plana. We talk about the PAC and PTA. So some of them, they give you the emails and the phone number so we can contact them, because it's very important to have the contact information. So because they're doing with a lot of money, we try to be sure they spend the money, how they spend the money, who using the money. And a lot of them, they say they will, they already emailed me the information. Also, we talk about how we can, leaders, they can use the Bridgeport, in an email, Bridgeport on adu.net. Mr. Plana informed me that yes, they can use it. Leaders, it's only for the PAC presidents. They can let them know the principal. So the principal send an email to the IT department so they can create, a Bridgeport ADU, for the leader, for the PAC president only. Also, we talk about the Title I priority grant. Nadira Clark explained us a lot of information. That's what we're going to talk about later about that. That's why I asked you in the agenda. And then we talk about the PAC convention, and we're going to talk about that later. That's why I asked you to add in the agenda. And my next meeting is going to be May 28th, I believe, 2020 at 5:30 p.m.
Okay. So you're aware, Mr. Benahan, if anything comes up in your committee that you want to have placed on the agenda, you can send me an email and say, we discussed this at my committee. We'd like to have this discussed at the full board level, and we'll place it on the agenda. It helps us to plan ahead a little better. So,
all right, sir. Thank you so much.
This is all new territory for a lot of us. So I just want to make sure we're clear.
All right.
Are there any referrals for students and families? Okay. Ad hoc committee, Great City Schools, males of color. Mr.
We have not met yet, and since the virus has struck, I'm trying to plan something to get together, but it's going to take a back seat for a little while until we get through this.
Okay. Okay. Superintendent's report, I anticipate this to start with a general report, and then he will segue onto his Q&A. So I'm going to turn this on over to Mr. Testani at this point. Mr. Testani.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm going to address a few of the things that have been brought, number one, by the public comments, the few comments that we did have, and also some of the things that were just mentioned as part of the facilities mention and the finance committee personnel. So I'd like to start by saying it has been a very challenging time for everyone. I understand that. And I think that the Bridgeport community, I think I said this again last week when I spoke for the Budget and Appropriations Committee, the Bridgeport community has really come together in this difficult time. And we've done, in typical Bridgeport fashion, done a great job in making sure that we support each other in every way we can. That starts in the city government and here in the Board of Education all the way down to all our staff. So I appreciate everyone's efforts. There's been some bumps in the road, obviously. When you deal with something that came out of nowhere, and I don't think anyone initially thought the school closure would be to this extent. I know it was mentioned at one point by one of the members of the public comment, depending on what the governor's orders are, that we should probably stay closed the remainder of the year. I think, there's a lot of things that go along with what's going to happen, depending on what the governor does decide to do. I do think at some point, if we do have the opportunity, having some sort of gathering together of students and teachers to kind of close out the school year in some sort of normal way would be helpful. We've had a lot of discussions around that here in the district and also myself with some colleagues. Opening up school, if we never get an opportunity to come back at all, will be much more difficult and much more challenging than it is over the course of just a regular summer break. But if we have to do that, we'll be prepared to do so. In terms of facilities, we've been working extremely hard. I spoke to Bobby Hammond a lot in the last couple of weeks. We're ready, if schools are closed, to have some staffs to come in over a spread out period of 2 or 3 days into the buildings to clear out and make sure anything is secured from when they left of personal belongings. And we will begin our summer cleaning as soon as the announcement is made at the state level that schools will be closed. We've already begun to send the trades out and begin to do all the stuff that possibly would have or may not have been addressed because of having people in the building. So we got painters out there, masons, electricians. We're gathering some data on parking lots to see if we can have Craig and public facilities begin to fix any potholes and things like that. So we're going to take full advantage of the time off to make sure our facilities are taken care of. We have, like I said, we had to stagger our tradespeople per the city for a couple of weeks, but we anticipate them. Actually, today we got back to a regular schedule. So there's a number of projects that have been prioritized, including the steps for the masons in front of Central High School that were boarded off. We had, I had in this fall gates brought up. So now we're going to make sure those steps get repaired as they were not part of the renovate as new construction project. But I mean, it's terrible that that area has not been addressed yet. In terms of the budget, I think people need to understand that there are a lot of uncertainties, but there's also going to be a time where when we do return back to school, this CARES Act money is going to be there for us to be able to provide the services, number one, the compensatory services our special education students are losing out on right now, and two, to fill in any gaps that we know are going to exist in having a 30% of the school year closure. So it's very important that people don't think we're getting an influx of money. And we also have the uncertainties of having cuts made to our state allocation of dollars, because under the federal legislation now, states can apply for a waiver, which would where they can then provide funding based on an average of the last 3 years, which would mean the anticipated gains that we were into our budget that we were expecting would evaporate, and it could decrease. So I think people need to understand this money is not additional money. It may end up only being money to keep us whole from all the other areas where we're going to lose from. So I think that's an important piece that we need to continue to stress with our local city government here, that we're not going to get this windfall of money, which would prohibit them from fulfilling their obligations to us in our current budget. I stressed this last week, and I'll continue to stress this. Our kids are going to need more, not the same, and definitely not less. They're going to need more in order to get caught up, not only academically, but social, emotionally, and a number of other ways that we're not going to know the full effects of this for 12 to 18 months. It's important that we're cognizant of that, and it's important that we start preparing for that, because there's going to be collateral damage here. And unfortunately, on the news, we hear a lot about the stresses of this virus on healthcare workers, which I appreciate what they're doing on the front lines, on first responders, on parents becoming teachers. But I think the forgotten group here are children. Children who are dealing with this and dealing with all the things that go along with it. So I just want people to understand that our budget isn't increasing. Our budget is in flux right now. So that's an important piece. Our distance learning plan, we've rolled it out in 3 phases. It's on the website if people want to see how this was done. There was plenty of opportunity for training of staff throughout the fall and winter on the Teams platform. Not everyone took advantage of the trainings that our IT department has set up. But we also had to support teachers during this current time. We've set up an academic team that teachers can rely on, who are experts on the Teams platform and utilizing it for instruction. And they are set up and they're taking calls, they're providing webinars and professional development. So I think as we move farther along with this, people will become more comfortable with it. It is an extraordinary platform. If used to its fullest extent, which we hope to get there at some point, it can do some amazing things, and it'll revolutionize, some of the ways we deliver certain services going forward as well. Again, our academic team and our IT department has done an amazing job throughout this. Our high school teachers hit the ground running right from day one. So they're 5 or 6 weeks in at this point. So a lot of the kinks have been worked out. Our middle school teachers are becoming more comfortable with it. And it's going to be more challenging, obviously, for our elementary school teachers, given the fact that working remotely for young kids is much more difficult. That's why we continue to prepare the printed materials. We have printed materials picked up and work dropped off last week. We have another couple of weeks before we do that again. We're supplementing with different educational resources as well. We'll have in early May scholastic book packs for all our students from K to 8. So those will be other opportunities and other things that our kids can, our children, as Miss Allen would say, can utilize during this closure. In terms of graduation, yes, it is a constant thought on my mind. I've had the luxury of being able to meet with groups of high school students from all our high schools in the last couple of weeks. And one of the things that we discussed in length was my desire to make sure that they get their moment, the moment that they've worked hard for and they deserve. It may not be in June, it may be in July or early August, but they've definitely weighed in that anything beyond August, they would not be interested in participating in once they went to college. So something at Thanksgiving time, like some districts are talking about, or during the Christmas break. They were very adamant that they would not participate once they moved on to their next phase of their lives. So unfortunately for the caller who called in, I can't control what Colby Cathedral does. I can't control what Bullard Havens does, what Capital Prep does. I only can control what we'll do here in the Bridgeport Public Schools. I've gotten some creative ideas from the kids. So in some form or fashion, we will have something for our students. It may not entail any crowd, anybody to come and watch. We would live stream it if that was necessary. But if we can do something safely, we're going to do it. I promise them that, and I'm going to be true to my word, because again, this is a milestone that cannot be overlooked. Whether you live in Greenwich, Bridgeport, or East Hartford, it's just an important piece. And in terms of the personnel committee, we will be asking at some point, probably sooner than that date of May 27th. We will be getting some interviews for some administrative openings that we know we will have based on retirements and based on other things that have happened. So we'll keep you posted when we get to that phase in the interview process. Other than that, if we want to open up the Q&A section, I'm more than happy to take questions related to anything around our closure here from COVID-19, what we're doing, what we plan on doing, and the future ahead as best I can. But you know, we're ready, Jeff, if anybody's interested. If not, you know, we can start with the board if you guys have any specific questions individually, and then go to the public, however you guys want to do it.
So we have opened up both YouTube live comments and Teams live Q&A, and we have gotten other questions just related to technical things, but no direct questions from the public. If there are any questions, now would be the time to do that, and then they will come up live right now. And we can wait a moment, and then you can proceed if you want to afterwards.
Okay.
So while we're waiting for any public questions, does anyone from the board have any questions about the closure for Mr. Testani?
Yes, I have a question.
Mr. Benahan.
Yeah, Mr. Testani, I have a question. It's coming from a lot of parents that ask me, and to ask you why the reason they give it so much in the package is so huge and so, you know, a lot of information. Like I give an example, I have a mom, they call me, they have a student for second grade, and they have, I know for the whole week, but they say like 30 pages to return it back. And sometimes they have homework that the mom or the student never know, and then never have a training for that. So the parents are a little confused, like why there's so much work.
Well, the work is supposed to cover 2 weeks, not one. Okay. So the next packet pickup we did last week will not be for, actually, it's 2 weeks and 2 days. So we're trying to make sure that we don't have too frequent of pickup and drop-offs, just to create social distancing and a safe transition. So that's been something that's been discussed at the building level by staff to make sure that there's not much interaction so frequently. And some parents have also mentioned that they did not want to come very frequently to the schools. So those are 2 weeks worth of work. It may seem like a lot. It's very important that they just do as much as they can as they go along, not try to knock it all out. It's not a race here. It's a marathon. So I think if they pace the kids a couple of hours every day, trying to make sure they do their reading, their writing, and their math, and filter in the science and the social studies components as well, they'll get through it. I don't want parents to think that, you know, I got to get through this all in a few days. They have really 10 to 11 days before the next drop off and pickup of school time. So that's why it may seem overwhelming at first, but they just need to slowly get through it. I don't want to see kids frustrated, and I really don't want to see parents frustrated as well.
Also, this coming, they coming from you because they asked me some of that question, and I know they will check this video about the laptop. I want you to let them know clear what's going on with the laptop, because I want they can know they're coming from you.
Well, so there's a donation coming to our high school students from the Connecticut Partnership. We're going to receive a donation of laptops that's going to come to the district that we will use for high school students only. That's been that was the charge from the donor. We're going to get some in May, some in June, some in July. Most likely those laptops will then be given out in the fall. At that point, when we do proceed to give them out, students will use these laptops. Parents will be required to make a one-time fee every year of $25 to cover the insurance of the device. And that fee will be paid in September, and that will last throughout the year. We will do a collection of the laptops to make sure that everything is in good working order at Christmas break, winter break, and then proceed to give those back when they return in January. But that is the plan for all our high school students. We're also in the process of utilizing some city funds and some Board of Ed funds as a result of the closure to purchase some devices that all our elementary schools will have access to, not just the ones that have received grants, but will be more equitable spread out across the district.
And it's only coming, it's going only for high school, not elementary school.
The one-to-one devices that'll be issued to bring home are going to be high school only, and will access all the online curriculum that, for example, as Fairchild Wheeler has done since they opened 6 years ago.
All right,
Mr. Chair?
Hey, hang on, we're going to go down the list. This is why I go down the list. Okay, are you done, Mr. Benahan?
Yes, sir. Thank you so
Okay.
much.
So next on
Before
the
you
list
hang
is-
up, Mr. Benahan, I'd like all the families that are listening. We're trying to update our database because we want to send out report cards through the email system. So any parents, please contact the schools. We've done a really good job in the last few days. There are a few schools where we need to get email addresses of parents so that they can access the report card and we can send one out remotely. This is also going to be helpful in keeping correspondence throughout the district on any updates that we have. So about 80% of the schools are at about 90%. We do have a few schools that need to really get involved and get updated email addresses for parents into the system. So everybody out there listening, let's get the word out.
One question.
Thank you,
Okay,
Mr. Tony. Thank you.
Mr. Illingworth, you had a question?
Yes, Mr. Chair, thank you. First of all, I'd like to say thank you, Mr. Testani, for everything you've done through this whole crisis, and I really appreciate your leadership along with your leadership team. Really, it's an incredible job that you've done with such with all our challenges you've seemed to meet every single one. I just want to clarify, and I know when we talk about these devices, laptops, and I don't want parents or families to get confused when we talk about the $25 fee for insurance. I mean, this also where it's not like in the past where you've only used these devices in your classrooms. That's it. These laptops will go home with the children every single day, so they can use it every single day from home to school, etc. So that is the reason why it's important that if something happens, it breaks, it gets lost or whatever, we have funds and insurance to recuperate, the loss of that device and be able to issue that student another device.
Absolutely. That is going to be everything that the student is able to do to produce work in all their classes. So it's going to be something that has to come back and forth. If a child forgets their laptop at home, they're going to be at a real disadvantage the next day as they attend classes and they don't have their device. So it works great up at Fairchild Wheeler since they opened, and there's no reason why it can't work at Central, Harding, Bassick, and BMA. Our kids are going to learn that this is just going to be an extension of them and their schooling. And once they get into the habit, I don't anticipate any problems.
We're going to have to get you into the habit of calling them students or children.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Ms. Brown, you had a question?
Yes. So I have one was about attendance. I know that I've seen and have received different emails from parents complaining about logging in with the how teachers are doing the attendance or roll call for students. So I'm not sure what the lineup is for students to participate, because you have some, even a younger, elementary school parent was saying, well, how does my child report for them being online or whatever the situation may be. So that's one. And then the second one, I received a text message today about a para. I know that everyone is social distancing, but I'm not sure how this parent is, I guess, the child's special needs. So with the child being special needs and needing assistance with whatever work that they're getting, how are we addressing those that have special needs in our school district? I mean, you probably have mentioned it. I just figured
That's
I'd just
okay. No,
ask
no,
you
no.
anyway.
It's fine. So we'll start with the first question, surrounding the attendance. The elementary attendance really is much more difficult because many of those students are the ones that require the printed materials. There are some periodic check-ins. Some of the confusion has been at the high school level where teachers are following a schedule as if it was regular school. So for example, at Central High School, they have an alternating red-black day block schedule. So the school posts what day it is, what times the classes meet from the beginning. So if students do not log in during the allotted class time and make a connection as the teacher is on Teams, such as we are, they will be marked absent. It is the most accurate way in order to make sure that students are engaged, they stay engaged. I know it's not always easy, especially at the beginning when we began the process. I think some, and naturally so, some high school students thought it was a vacation and they were not waking up early enough to log into their classes. And I know at Central, they started doing the classes, the first period is at 9 a.m. So they did take into consideration, they didn't start at 7:53. They gave them some leeway till 9. The classes are maybe running 15 to 20 to 30 minutes to make sure any questions could be addressed, any work can be supported. So I think it's important that parents understand that, and I've heard it from the students, it is tough sometimes to just go on the laptop. It's so easy for them to close it down, shut the screen, and go back to do something else, especially when there's distractions. And that's coming from the high school people. So those kids those students or children are having challenges themselves staying focused when there's so many other things distracting them. But we're trying to make sure that we keep everyone engaged. Don't want anyone to fall through the cracks. In terms of the special education students that require support, we have speech and language doing telephone, FaceTime, Teams support. We have social workers running groups. We have resource teachers modifying work. We have paraprofessionals in many cases going on the Teams platform as well, helping support those students. We're doing, as we've been directed, we're trying to implement the IEPs to the greatest extent possible. I think we're doing a pretty good job in making those connections. Unfortunately, I think nothing can replace the face-to-face contact that our students, especially our most vulnerable students, have with staff. And that's why I think as soon as we can get back to school and people feel comfortable sending their kids to school, we'll need to have a plan in place to make up that time, make up those services to those kids that have lost out on important, not only instructional time, but also the other aspects of their IEPs.
Okay, thank you. I'm gonna send you an email with that concern as well, so you'll have record of it.
Okay, thanks.
And
Ms.
I'm
Allen,
going
do
to
you
send
Ms.
her
Allen,
to
do you have
practice.
any questions for Mr. Testani?
I said I'm going to have him practice his children or students.
Okay.
We're going to have him write 100 times.
There we go.
The old-fashioned way we used to do.
Okay. Mr. Lombard, do you have any questions for Mr. Testani?
Yes, I'll just do a couple of them. I was thinking of a number of things. One, Mr. Testani, is what has been the discussion around whether or not there would be any need other than the SPED students for work beyond the school year? Or will the assessment show that it's adequate for the teachers' feelings about the way things are going with the distance learning they're now doing? So when the end of this school year comes, students can move on to the next class. Or is there any need for anything beyond that? I know some governors have been talking about that. It's out there, the conversation's out there regarding some type of summer school. So I wanted you to address that. The other teaching and learning, we were talking about this. Any ideas coming together yet about using some of this distance learning on a permanent basis for some as an option, maybe for some high school students, or something that could work well with their schedules? Or is there any talk about that yet, or is it too premature? And that's it.
So, okay, great. So yeah, we've been directed as best as we could in terms of summer programming, what that could or could not look like. Here in the district, we've been talking about the opportunities that we may have to present if schools do not open till the fall and we're not allowed to get back into the buildings even in the summer. So we're prepared to run our early reading success for elementary kids. We're also prepared to run some simulants of our extended school year for our special needs population and our high school credit recovery for high school students that need to recover credit, whether that's from this year or from years past. So we do have enough devices, given the approximate numbers that we're basing on the last 5 or 6 years of attendance, that we can hand out to students that will require them to participate. Again, it wouldn't be an ideal situation, but we will make sure that this year the staff that's chosen to work these programs will have to demonstrate a certain level of expertise on teams in order to participate, because it's going to be more critical than ever that they can utilize the program to the fullest extent so students can benefit. In terms of ideas, yeah, I think one of the things that we're brought to light is that this needs to be used on a regular basis with students in the regular classrooms. We can utilize this in a number of ways. We've talked about credit recovery options through Teams, where we wouldn't have to use an online platform as in the past, where there's sometimes questions of how students were possibly Googling answers or things of that nature. And so now we can actually have a rubric where kids can then make up credits during the school year and, you know, be online through the Teams process. Homebound students who are on homebound, rather than have folks meet at libraries or go out to homes, this is a perfect option now to cut down on those concerns that are raised by families and also by staff. There's also great ways now to engage parents once we get all the emails in parent conferences, whether it's during the report card time. We can schedule times where parents can then just set up a 10 or 15 minute block. They can take 15 minutes during their lunch at work, possibly before they commute home, where we can get interactions between staff and parents much more conveniently for the parents. Obviously, they don't have to leave work in order to rush to the school to have a parent conference with a student or be part of a PPT meeting. Rather than just phone in, we can get that visual face-to-face contact. This also could be something utilized for snow days. I know that's been something that's been raised by some districts as well. This could be a perfect opportunity during a snow day. If students do have one-to-one devices that they can stay engaged with their teachers. And maybe we wouldn't have to make up the snow days. Maybe it would just be an option. So these are a number of ways that have been thrown around on how we can utilize this platform going forward. But it's definitely something that has raised an awareness of us here in the district. I think as staff become more and more comfortable and all the little different nuances of the program are realized by the teachers and the staff, will be able to get a bigger picture handle on how we can roll this out for the future.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Sakalovic, do you have any questions?
Yeah, just a couple this time. Laptops. I'm talking not the new ones coming in, the existing laptops. How many have we given out? And have parents still been contacting us for laptops for them to use for their children?
Yeah, we're still giving out some laptop devices today. We've given out over 4,000, close to 5,000. You know, I think as some parents become a little more comfortable and see what others are doing, they've come out. The printed materials are still something that a lot of folks are asking for. We're trying to discourage them. If we can get them a device, we're trying to discourage, obviously, the need for the printed materials from having to make the copies, distribute them out. Unfortunately, there are some that we've given laptops to, and they still come in and pick up the printed materials as well. So we're going to continue to work and try to encourage as many folks as possible until we run out of devices.
And how are we turning around the printed materials and online materials for grading and feedback throughout the day?
Well, we're giving out the printed materials on a 2-week cycle. So as they come in, because of some of the things that have been mentioned in the media and everything else, the materials are to sit for a period of time before that staff would then take them, provide feedback. So we're still in those stages for those folks from the last drop off on Thursday and Friday. But I think as people become a little bit more comfortable in what the findings are surrounding the virus, we're hoping that it eases some of their anxiety when it comes to you know, collecting the materials, when to handle them, and how to provide the feedback, because that's been raised by a number of staff members that you know, I heard this, I read that, and you know, a lot of information's going on, a lot of conflicting information's being given. So
as far as grading, we discussed at the teaching and learning committee as far as letter grades versus pass fail. Has there been any more guidance from the state on that? And have we made a decision to stick with letter grades or go to the pass fail system?
Well, it's really been the state has provided a little bit of guidelines, but I think overall it's going to be a local decision here. Today I finished up having my student roundtables with high school kids to put all the options on the table and let them weigh in on how they want to be graded. Since these are their transcripts and they're their resumes when they have to move on and apply for college and post-secondary opportunities. So we've gathered that. I think it's important then at the next teaching and learning committee meeting, we have a discussion once the plan is finalized here internally to see where we're going to go with this. We have discussed making the report card, altering it a little bit more, especially for elementary, middle school kids, children, sorry, Miss Allen, children, so that we can put a little bit more commentary there to provide parents and students a little bit more feedback verbally than just a grade of pass or fail or A, B, C, or D.
Thank you.
I need to ask a question.
Yes.
I need to ask a question.
Ms. Allen, are you trying to ask a question?
I would like to have an opportunity. What happens to families that have both high school and elementary school children that we are releasing these devices to? Does every child have an opportunity to have his own or a family affair on distributing these devices?
It's pretty much a family affair, unless, you know, if a high school student has one from their school and an elementary student asked for one, there's no cross-checking from the principal. So the opportunity could have presented itself where 2 devices were given out. And if that's the case, then we're okay with that. It's based on
Okay,
what the allocation
so
to the
that means
school has.
So that means that the parent would have to pay 2 rental fees or whatever you call the fees.
If we
If
issue
we
the
have two.
devices like that for, yes, it's $25 per device. Next year, our plan is to only send home one-to-one devices at the high school level. So we won't have to worry about that. The elementary, middle school folks will utilize those devices within the classroom.
Oh, I see. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, that wraps it up for us at the board level. Mr. Postolowski, are there any members of the public who have questions related to the school closure?
Yes, sir. There was several things posted. Did you want me to approach them in order that they were received, or how would you like that done?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. So I will read these off to you right now. One moment.
Do you know how many there are?
Right now, there are 16 questions, and one of them was a comment. So the first one from Shayla Robinson said, and this was in reference to Mr. Testani's earlier opening, where he stated, you know, what was going on, and basically it says, "Thank you for stepping up for our children in every way. This has not been easy, and you have handled it very well. And I do wish the attendance issue could be addressed, though, from an earlier comment."
No problem. That'll be addressed first thing tomorrow, Shayla.
Okay. The next question comes in and says, what are you doing for students with special needs for their social work, speech, language, OTPT, etc.?
Okay, so I think that was answered earlier when Ms. Brown asked, but all those services are being delivered remotely, whether it's through the Teams platform or FaceTime. We have teleservices in speech and language. Ms. Rivera has given me updates on a weekly basis, and they're logging all the hours that they're interacting with their caseloads. Same thing with social work. Mr. Young's folks have been diligent in making sure they run their groups, they do their one-to-one IEP hours. They're logging in as well, keeping a log of all the hours that they're doing. Again, we want to be as accurate as possible so that if the services that we need to provide once we get back to school need to be updated, we can know which students that we have to provide those compensatory hours for. However, it's important that students and parents, you know, are reaching out as well. If parents have a specific question, they reach out to the school to get in contact with those service providers. If they're feeling as if no one is reaching out or no one's following through, please let my office know and I will follow through for them.
Okay, next question, Mr. Postolowski.
The next question states, in regards to my concern, I apologize, this question was fragmented. My concern, what happens if a student doesn't return the packets or struggles in the beginning of the process? What is the plan as we are now in the 4th marking period?
Well, if they don't return the packets at all, it's going to be difficult to grade someone and provide accurate feedback. If they hand in the packets, for example, for the 3rd marking period, we extended the date by 11 days. So the marking period ended on the 9th. We extended it to the 20th for students to hand in and complete the work. So in terms of the 4th marking period, we just handed out the packets. Students should be working to the best that they can every single day, making sure that if they can submit remotely, whether it's through a phone and an email or an uploading through Teams to the teachers for feedback, that would be great. Like I said a couple of times to folks, if you can take a simple picture with your cell phone, send the email to the teacher, a picture of the assignment that's been completed, it'll make life a lot easier when it comes to providing feedback. If the fourth marking period, there's nothing turned in, unfortunately, depending on how the student was progressing in their classes prior, unfortunately, this could be possible, a revisit of if this child will move on or not, unfortunately. But as long as they continue to work hard and they stay engaged, all factors will be considered during the grading of the fourth marking period.
Okay, next question, Mr. Postolowski.
And just to clarify, that last question was from Dasha S. The next question comes from Tom Smith. And the question for everyone would be, would you put your own child back into school at this time?
I don't think right now it's the time to make that decision. We're way too early in the game here in the process to make a decision to send kids back to school. I think before we can send kids back to school, we need to get reassurances from health officials at the health department. We need to have a plan in place on how that will look. I think parents need to be aware, whether it's today, tomorrow, next month, or even in the fall, that a child arriving to school at 8 in the morning and staying until an after school program ends at 6 p.m. is probably not going to be the norm initially. There could be other ways that we have to stagger the day as things have been thrown out there. There's going to be a lot of factors that come into play, which will also impact parents when it comes to them returning back to work. So I think this is going to be a very delicate situation, and it's got to be handled extremely carefully and very methodically. So today, I don't think any parent would want to send their child back to school today. That would be irresponsible.
Okay, next question, Mr. Postolowski.
The next question comes from John Cunningham, and it says, is the school district going to ensure the new high school laptops provided via the Connecticut partnership? The philanthropic optics are poor if we lose or break anything.
Again, I think that's why it was mentioned earlier, when we do distribute those to students, parents will be required. And I think we probably bring this to a committee and then to the full board, be required to pay the $25 fee in order to cover the loss, theft, or damage to any of the devices. And as you know, Mr. Postolowski, you and I have had extensive discussions on what that's going to look like going forward to make sure that 5 years from now, we still have one-to-one devices for our kids.
Okay, next question, Mr. Postolowski.
This next question comes from Kobe Cruz. In a follow-up to Mr. Lombard's question, can district learning be in place of snow days? You may have already answered that, but that did come up.
Yeah, there's probably a possibility if we prepare and we anticipate that we're going to have a significant amount of snow and the possibility of a cancellation if we send the devices home with all the students, with the understanding that the non-insured devices are returned once the snow day is over and we come back to school. I think that is a possibility that it could be used for that. It could be used maybe at the high school level and not the elementary level. So those students then would begin their exams and dismiss earlier than the other students. But absolutely, it's something that we can think about going forward. It's a creative way to do it.
Next question.
And as a follow-up to that last one, that was a summarization of Diana Draper's question as well. And the next question comes from Kinga Karlowski. It says, even if laptops are given, some children do not understand how to use computers or do their work on them.
Well, I think once we issue the devices at the high school level on the first day of school, the first couple of days will be used to get kids familiar with the online platform. So it's not only going to be through Teams, there are going to be online textbooks that they can access. I think everybody will be more than comfortable within a week or two utilizing them over textbooks.
Next question.
And the last question was a comment and was a follow-up to a last statement. It says, I have a comment. As a parent that is used to doing research and having access with getting materials or assistance for my child. However, we have parents and guardians in the district that may not have resources, time, or support to assist their children with doing the basic work. I spoke to a parent the other day that is a frontline worker during this crisis and has been working 7 days a week and 10 hours plus. Is this being taken into consideration when it comes to the support and additional time for the children?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important that we understand that this is not going to be over with anytime soon. So students and parents of folks that are working the amount of hours that you just described, we're hoping that we're able to then fill in once we return to school with other programming. That's why I said any monies that are coming in from the CARES Act are going to be to enhance program that we currently have to make sure those students that did not have the luxury of parents at home that could support them, we can provide that additional support when we come back into the building. So we appreciate what parents are doing that have to go out and be on the front lines. And we want to make sure that we do our part to make sure their kids are supported once we return back to school as well.
You have other questions, Jeff?
The final one came in was a comment/question, and it said, I do want to praise the district and CSMA as this transition has been hard, but the first time in weeks, both my daughter and I have felt good about what she is doing and the amount of support that she has been given by teachers.
Well, I'm glad they feel that way. I think it's been a lot of effort to make sure that everyone is doing their part for the children. It hasn't been easy, but I think once people have really stepped up to the plate, others have really rallied around our kids as well, our children as well. Sorry, Miss Allen. But I think as we get further along, people are going to become more comfortable. People are going to become better at utilizing, engaging the amount of work that's being given to students. My only fear is that once we get deeper into the spring and early summer months of May and June, as the weather gets nicer, that the initial reaction is going to be for people to want to be outside and not sitting inside where they've been for months working on schoolwork. So we want to really keep everybody focused. This is not going to be easy if we have to do this through the end of the school year. But if we all stick together and we work hard to support our students, I think we'll be better off at the other end of this. So we all got to just do our part and hang in there a little bit longer.
Okay. Is that
Mr.
it?
Chair, can I ask a question?
Sure, Ms. Brown.
It just slipped my mind, but Mr. Testani, I know that we are big on the social, emotional track of things for our Bridgeport students, and I know just being an adult, just dealing with anxiety in itself for students and even parents, but also for our teachers. So, do you know what we're going to do for our parents and students as we prepare to transition to come back to school, whatever date that may be? Because I think it's really important, and I say this from just following a lot of our young people, because I do a lot with the girls, and that has been the biggest thing that they're dealing with is that anxiety, not being able to go out. And then also too is like a lot of them are dealing with depression, and this has caused depression on our students like heavily. And because I get a chance to talk to them often, and I want to know, like, is there anything that we can do for our district, for teachers as well? Because I saw something where a teacher was saying how I don't mind doing FaceTime calls with my students, but my home living situation is not the best to even teach a student. And I think about that side of it, because everyone's big on, making teachers feel some type of way about, not being able to get on, but we don't know what teachers go home to either. So I'm just thinking about the stress that students and teachers are feeling on both sides, and how we as a district can look out for them once we return, and also help them transition before they return.
So that's a great point, Ms. Brown. So that's why I think one of the things that we've been talking a lot about is that we may not be allowed to have, and we may not feel safe in allowing students to return this year. But my focus would be to get, number one, get teachers back in the building, because obviously in a large school building, we can social distance much more easily without students there, but have staff there. So we can provide them with support. We can do some professional development. I think a lot of the money that is coming in that we do receive as part of the Federal CARES Act, we're going to need to provide workshops, a lot around social emotional learning when we get back to school. I mentioned to Mr. Benahan, making sure that we provide real solid workshops for parents when we return back in the fall, on how we can support them so they can support their children. So there's going to be a lot in place, but I think we can strategically put together a plan that will support students, will support staff, and will support families.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Postolowski, had you exhausted the public questions?
There's one more that popped up before we closed out that was combined together from, and this one was posted by Anonymous, and it simply said, I'm assuming they mean school day. When is the last day? Will schools be back in session, or will this not occur until fall? And that was after the close of the comments.
Okay.
Yeah, so right now there is no date of return. The last day tentatively for distance learning and school closure with grades and everything else would be June 25th. Depending on how things shape up from this point on. But that's the day we're planning for closing out our school year, is June 25th. For students, that may be a few days earlier, allow for time for teachers to put together the commentary and the grading for the fourth marking period and the end of the year.
Okay. I think that wraps it up for Q&A. Next item on the agenda is, I'm sorry?
Mr. Weldon, I have one simple question for Mr. Testani, please.
Okay. Mr. Benahan.
Thank you, Mr. Weldon. Mr. Testani, what happened with the parent? They cannot pay the $25 for the laptop. Do we have a sponsor that we can help them?
No. Okay. Unfortunately, that's why we're trying to get this information out early, that parents can, it's a one-time fee. It's not a monthly fee, as what, I was told that the misconception was out there that they would have to pay monthly. It's a one-time fee at the beginning of the year, and that covers them for the entire school year. So I think parents are just trying to make them aware of that now, so that they can prepare. This would be high schools only. So high school parents, anyone who has a current eighth grader, all the way through current high school students that won't be graduating. This gives them several months to prepare for the $25 insurance coverage for a brand new laptop.
All right, thank you, sir.
Okay. So next on the agenda is old business. We have no old business to transact. Following that is new business. And under new business, we have the item that was added to this evening's agenda, which is discussion and possible action concerning Title I allocations. Mr. Benahan, you asked for this item, so I'm going to see what it is you'd like to do with it.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. The reason I'm asking for this agenda is because I know we trying to spend the money, all the pack leaders of each school. I know a lot of pack leaders, they trying to do the best they can because I know the deadline is May 1st. So a lot of leaders, they're calling me to see how much money they have. And in one of my meetings, I asked Mr. Plana, he sent me the form, and I can send it to you, how much money right now on the school have each leaders. Some school, they trying to spend the money, but they trying to order stuff. But I don't know why they trying to make difficult when they order stuff. They're asking for more quotes, and ask Mr. Plana to let them know, Mr. Testani. My big question is what's happened, and the far I know that my committee, Mr. Joe and Bobby Brown was with me. The money they don't spend, let's give a sample, any school, they don't spend, let's see, 3,500. What's gonna happen with that 3,500? That far I understand, and please correct me, that they don't go back to the state, but Marlene Siegel will have that money back. I would thought they're gonna go straight to the state. Or is it possible that money can stay there to roll over for the next year? So I bring it to my committee. We were talking about that, and I didn't know that. I didn't know. I was in shock when I find out that Marlene Siegel is the one who used the money. I thought that money goes straight back to the state.
You want me to address that, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
So there are Title I monies that roll over to the next year. As you know, through Title I, we pay for a number of things in the district, not just parent engagement. So these types of funds do get rolled over to the next year within Title I and utilized for things that are in the Title I budget, that would then offset some of the deficits that we have possibly in the operating budget, if we do happen to have a deficit. Right now, the majority of our schools have spent almost or a good portion of their money. One of the concerns that we had, usually all the funds need to be encumbered by April 1st. Now, we closed on the 12th was our last day. So at that point, you would think that at least 90% of the funds should have been encumbered, and maybe there was a few funds that needed to be encumbered by April 1st. I did tell the department, purchasing department, to extend it by a month to May 1st. We still have folks that are going through the process, but it was raised last week why they needed quotes. Obviously, if anything's over $1,000 or the orders are close together in the same day or two from the same vendor, even if they're both under 1,000, city ordinance kicks in and they request 3 quotes. Now you can easily go to other vendors and do a shopping cart and print that out. So for example, if you went to WB Mason and you got quotes for supplies, if you went to Staples and online, put all those same supplies into a cart, it would give you how much the cost is. Instead of checking out, just print that out. You can upload that. That is a quote. You could do the same at another vendor that's not a Bridgeport Public School approved vendor and get, so those quotes do count. I guess, to put it mildly, but there are some schools that even as of today did not expend the monies anywhere near what they should have. So to allow them to carry that over to their schools, I mean, the only thing I would say is if they didn't spend it this year, now we're asking them to, what's going to be the indication they'll be able to spend it next year. I think it's important that we work with those PAC leaders and PTSO leaders even beyond May 1st to make sure that they can get the resources they need. The one thing that I had mentioned to Mr. Benahan the other day is that possibly we utilize funds that they haven't spent to try to get them a laptop device that can be dedicated to the PAC or PTSO of the school for the use of the president, to make their lives easier so that they can access orders and P9s from home or from anywhere else where they can get Wi-Fi rather than have to come to the school and utilize a school computer or a school device. So I think that's something that we can work with the PTSO and PAC leaders in the next couple of weeks to make sure if they're in agreement that we can get that done for them.
I understand, Mr. Testani, what you say about the code, but I'm telling you because my experience being ambassador 4 years, former PTSO, and I really order stuff from from W. Manson, 2 or 3 codes. They never asked me. I'm telling you because I still have papers. Asked me for another quote for another company, like exactly what you just say. That was very surprised when leader they told me, oh, they asked me for more quotes for another company. I cannot have the same 3 orders with the same quote for the same company. So I was very in shock when when they told me that. And Nadira Clark, they told me they're gonna talk with Ms. Siegel to see what's going on situation because she don't know what happened exactly. But I don't want all these PAC leaders and PTSO get stressed because they're trying to do the best they can to spend the money. They're trying the best they can. I know I'm trying to help them in the chat and in video and text message, order stuff, different company. Sometimes another company, they take forever to send a quote. So they're trying to contact another people. So, that's why I'm very shocked that I never heard that they need to have another quote. You cannot have the same quote with the same company. I've never heard that.
Well, if it's over $1,000, you're going to need it, even if our department.
No, that part I understand that. Yes, sure.
Yeah.
Over $1,000, yeah. But I'm talking about it's less than $1,000, and they see W Manson, the person order 3 different codes, so they don't want to ask. They don't want to take the 3 different codes.
Right, but if it's on the same day, that's where the problem goes. That's I forget the term they use for that.
It's called bid splitting.
Bids, yeah. There you go.
So I think what Mr. Testani is saying is if they see a purchase for a like item in pretty rapid succession, they're going to make you bundle it all together and say, your 3 orders at $500 a piece were made a day apart. Well, that totals $1,500, and you ordered them so close to each other, it's basically one order. You got to go out and get 3 quotes because it is otherwise referred to as bid splitting, where you're trying to reduce the value of the purchase to the point where it falls under the threshold that requires.
Right. And when I asked our folks here, when you brought it to my attention, even if we approve it, it'll get kicked back at the city level. So rather than waste time, that's why I said if they go to Staples and then just fill the cart up with the same items and print that out, that's a quote. It doesn't have to be an official. It could just be something like that. Go to another vendor, fill the cart up with the same items. Before they check out, hit print on the cart, and that'll be a quote. Or just try to stagger them out, a week or so apart, and it won't raise any red flags.
All right, I'm gonna let them know, and I'm gonna let them know they can see this video so they can understand a little more clear your information.
Perfect.
Also, the $9,000 for the parent convention. I just want to know what's going on. That we're gonna roll over for the next year, because I don't want to lose that money. I know
Yes.
because
So I spoke to Marlene Siegel this morning, and we had a conversation about rolling that money into next year rather than have one larger parent convention. Like Ms. Brown brought up, there's going to be a need to transition even parents back to school. So to do something in the fall to provide professional development and workshops for parents to transition them and their kids back to school is going to be vital. So that money will be set aside to do something or a series of things the first month or 2 of school to make sure parents have the information they need and the skill set from professionals to provide them with what they need to help support their kids.
So in other words, we're gonna have it for next year $8,000, but $9,000. The first one's gonna be like for you, like you said, do something for the parents.
Yes, absolutely, all parents.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. We all set?
Mr. Chair?
Mr. John Weldon.
Mr. Skolovic had a question?
Yes, I got a question and I got some things I would like to point out and I would like to make a motion afterwards, if I may. Okay, under the CARES Act, we got our parents' engagement dollars, which are really, really rare and the only dollars we have for our parents. And our parents are scrambling to spend the money at the end of the year. But part of the CARES Act has suspended Title I deadlines and allows that money to be rolled over. Particular Section 421B of the General Education Provisions Act to extend the period of availability of prior fiscal year's funds for Title I, Parts A through D, Title II, Title III, Part A, Title IV.
Correct.
Part A to B. So this money is not required to be spent according to the law right now by
Correct.
May 1st. So our parents should not have to rush to spend these dollars and expend these dollars. So therefore, I'm going to make a motion to have Mr. Testani direct staff to prepare a journal entry to reserve those monies to be added to the Title I dollars next year for the schools that have not expended those monies.
So just to what you're saying, there is also a 15% waiver that
Yes.
we can move money around in Title I to things like devices, things that are not normally spent in Title I. But to your point, the money will be rolled over into Title I next year. What you're asking is to increase school budgets of schools who were not going to meet the original deadline without a COVID pandemic.
Well, no, sir. They could have made the expenditures, but for COVID, because they still had time. The schools
They had 2 weeks.
Yeah, 2 weeks is 2 weeks. But what I'm saying, even with that 15% to set aside, I'm not even sure I agree with that, because that's taking funds that parents have a whole say over and redirecting it. There's only one source of parent funds in our district. It's hard enough getting our parents involved, and to take away 15% to buy a computer when they may not want to expend it. The big thing with our expenditures, parental expenditures, is parent driven. Now, the parents may not need a laptop in a particular school that has that money left over. And I really think, and it's not adding to the budget, and it's not taking away from a budget. What it's doing is, this year, I'm going to make up some numbers. They're not correct. Say Park City Magnet got $1,500 left over this year, and they did not expend it. And next year, Park City Magnet is entitled to $3,000. The journal entry is prepared to zero it out for the year and to reserve the money for next year. So next year, they're getting the $3,000 they're entitled to next year out of the calculation of Title I funds, and adding the $1,500 to it and giving them $500.
And I agree with you, Mr. Sokolovic. I don't think, though, we should reward schools who did not expend or encumber at least a minimum amount of dollars. So to have a school that only spent 20% of their dollars and then to roll it all over to next year is, I think, just sends a bad message.
Well, I think that message needs to be sent to the principals and the PAC leader. Like we say with our children in the school and our students, children and students should not suffer for the bad decisions of adults, nor should all the parents suffer for the decisions of a few bad leaders on either side of it, whether it be us as parents or on the staff side.
If I could chime in this scenario, you're saying that, say, Park City Magnet had $1,500 that it had not yet encumbered.
Correct.
But they were supposed to do. Hang on. No. But they were supposed to do that by April 1st.
Correct.
But the April 1st deadline got extended to May 1st to allow for the COVID issue, so that they could have a little extra time to steady themselves and spend the money. But now, if after having been given a whole month extension, they still have not spent the money, why would we allow it to be rolled over into the following year on top of their base 3,000 allotment?
Because
the opportunity was given in the form of the extension, and if despite the extension it wasn't spent, why would we not just move ahead with it? I mean,
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Ellingworth.
Were you done, Mr. Sokolovic?
I'll let you, you can chime in. If I need to, I'll chime back.
All right, thank you. I definitely have some concerns here, and I actually agree with both sides here. I know this board for probably the last 2 years have looked at this PAC expenditure and what schools have used it, have schools have not. And I know, and I'm sure that if I pick up this year's list and compare it to last year's list, I'm probably going to see the same schools. I do agree with you, Mr. Testani, about the rolling over. I don't want to get into the precedence of awarding schools that already have a hard time and probably have a track record of not spending all their money, and then we're going to give them more money. But what I don't agree with is where we normally in the past have taken this money and redirected to other areas and to cover deficits, etc. We have a lot to do and so much work to do when it comes to parent engagement. And our funds are just not enough. So what I would like to see is the monies that are not used, and we use it for parent engagement, nothing else but parent engagement through workshops, training. There's so much to do when it comes to parent involvement, and I know you share this vision with me.
Yep,
Mr.
I think that's a
Testani.
great idea.
And I think that's what's important. But at the same time, that's my only concern. And with the whole convention, I agree with you. Let's take that 9,000 from this year, and let's do something in the beginning of the year to get parents back on track. If we can, and it's a great idea if we can get devices for the PAC presidents to use. I mean, that would be great. But it's going to take training to show, and I think obviously it's going to take some training for parents, for parent leaders, and presidents to know what the purchasing rules are, et cetera. Because now they're really enforcing those purchasing rules that probably in the past they really didn't when I was a PAC president.
Well, I also want to bring to your attention, we're only looking at the elementary schools because the PTSOs, those are our priority grant. Those do not roll over.
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah, you're absolutely right.
So we're looking at total across all our elementary schools. We're looking at a little bit about $23,000.
Now, what can we do for 20? Take that 23,000. I'm sure we can do something nice and productive for all our parents, including the high school parents.
I think a series of workshops where we bring in from the outside experts on how to work on I mean, we're not going to know all the extent, but we'll have a good assessment on how we can help support parents in the reopening of school. And we can bring in folks that can help do that. We can offer workshops at different times, day and evening, across the district to give parents access. I think that's a great idea. We could bring in some high-level folks that can do some high-level things, purchase some materials that we can send home with parents, whether it be books, whether it be other types of publications to help parents cope with getting their children back to school and all the things that go with the reopening of schools during and after a pandemic, because people are worried about what could happen in the fall, and I think that's going to be a stressful time as well for parents and families when this comes around, and we need to be prepared on how we can help support them and to get through this with the least amount of impact as possible.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, if I may just add one more comment, and I think what's also important to me is, sometimes we look at data all the time, right? But then what's the point of having data if we don't do anything about the data? So, what concerns me, and I believe if I'm correct, and if I'm not, please correct me, but I believe there is one school that approximately spent around 20% of their allocation. See, to me, that is a huge red flag. And if it hasn't been already, I expect a meeting to be taking place very soon with the school leadership and the parent president to see what went wrong, because obviously there's a huge problem there. So that's my point: is we can look at all this data, but if we don't actually do anything with the data and hold ourselves accountable, our schools accountable, all of us accountable, then what's the point of having all this data?
Just to give you guys one last piece of information, I just received a message that in the last few days since the student and families meeting, a substantial amount of form stack P10s were submitted across the district. So the number is going to be significantly lower than $23,000, but there will be monies available for us to provide parents with different types of workshops and professional development to help them when we do return in the fall. But there has been a number that were submitted. I'll get you an update as soon as I get those, have those approved and the money is encumbered. We can get an update to the full board at that time.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Does anyone else have anything to say?
Me, Joe.
Sokolovic?
Yes. Who's going to make the decisions on how these monies are spent if they are so rolled over?
Well, I think that the team here, I think involving the social emotional learning team that has the involvement of our donors and everything else should be heavily involved in determining how we're going to provide additional support. So Carrie Ramanaskis and the team there, that includes the TALC folks, it includes the RIASAP folks. I think that's important that we utilize that whole committee to provide parents. Mr. Planis's wife from PTLI is involved in that and seated at the table. So I think, we can get a survey of parents and parent leaders on some of the topics they think they need to get some help and support with, where they're struggling, where they see their kids are struggling. I think taking all that information during the summer and early part as we return to put together a concise plan on paper that we can utilize to guide us through this.
And okay, it's important to note that these are family engagement dollars. Title I's got other stuff covered. The point of my motion being, it hasn't got a second yet, by the way, that those dollars should stay with parent engagement and not be redirected to other Title I activities.
Correct. I agree with you. I think it's important that we provide some meaningful things for parents. This year we started to do some things, and they don't have to be expensive things, but I think they need to be meaningful and they need to be powerful to help support and impact how parents can go back and support their own kids or their own children. Sorry, Miss Allen, again, going forward, because we're going to need to do a better job at the district level too, to support our parent leaders and to increase parent engagement. I have a few ideas as part of a plan for next year that will heavily involve a concerted effort at the district level, not only at the school level.
And finally, I'd like to reach out and make a statement to the parents. Come get yours. It's very rare that somebody's going to hand you something. You got to go and take it. It's our children's education. Come get yours. If your PAC leader is not expending their dollars, if you're not having activities at your school, you need to call your PAC leader. It's the same thing you would do with us. If one of the staff members weren't doing what they're supposed to do, you would call the principal, you would call the superintendent. Same thing that you got to do with the PAC leader. If they're not doing their job, you got to maybe find a new one. And My motion still doesn't have a second. I don't know if anybody would like to second.
I will second that motion.
As is. Yeah, but I don't know if it's gonna pass.
Well, as is, as long as the funds that are not used be used strictly for parent engagement on a district level.
All right, wait, so wait,
An entire district level. I don't
let
want
me
just.
rephrase it.
Yeah, can I ask, Mr. Skolnick, I would ask if you would rephrase your motion to be more toward the spirit of what you're trying to accomplish and try not to include directing them to make journal entries and stuff like that.
Right.
But if they understand the spirit of what you want, that should be enough.
Okay, I'll withdraw that motion. I think, Mr. Hernan, you need to withdraw your second, and then I'll restate it.
I'll withdraw my second.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to have Mr. Testani to ensure that all unexpended parental engagement funds are only spent in the future. Any remaining dollars be spent only on parental engagement activities and not be redirected to anywhere else in Title I funding.
Okay, is there a second?
I will second that.
Second by Mr. Illingworth. Is there any further discussion on this? You have something to say, Mr. Benahan?
Yes, I would just want to be, I don't know if it's part of the discussion, but I just want to add something else. Or you want to close this motion?
You want to ask something else?
I want to ask something else, but it's different about what Mr. Joe said.
If it's different, then let's move on with the vote, and then you can ask your question afterward.
Okay.
Okay? All right. So is there any further discussion on Mr. Sokolowicz's motion related to his motion? All in favor? Signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Signify by
Aye.
Bobby Brown says aye. Okay. All opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Mr. Benahan, you had a question.
Yes, I just want to be sure clear that the money we're gonna use, the $9,000, there's to be any money is coming for the Title I and priority grant, and the $9,000 had to be for the parents. I don't want to hear later they say, "Oh, Marlene and Siegel have it," or we use it for pay any bills and nothing like that. Whatever we have to do and we got to do for any education for our parents from Bridgeport, I'm agree and I'll support that. And also, as the chair of the student family, I will work very hard to contact all these PAC leaders and help them how to spend the money, how to work everything, and helping the most I can. That's what I want to be sure this is in the record.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, good enough.
Thank you. Also,
Sorry.
hold up, sorry. Also, Mr. Testani, about everything, I'd like to say thank you to you about your amazing job. You're doing an amazing job. I know it's not easy, but, I take out my hat for you because, you're doing the most you can. We are not perfect. We're trying to do the best we can. And so far, for the short time you're here, you're doing an amazing job.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Thanks, Joe.
I'm gonna.
I second that.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. I appreciate that a lot.
So.
And I'd like to jump on the bandwagon too.
Sounds on the bandwagon.
Now his head's gonna really swell up.
Yeah. Okay. So I think we've concluded our business for this evening. I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
You adjourn.
By Mr. Sokolowic, is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Second by all. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Good meeting, everyone. Stay safe, stay healthy. All of us here and those of us in the public. Thank you.
God bless you all.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Good night.